Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann, and I show men and women how they can lead healthy, happy, sustainable lives. And I'm really delighted because today I'm joined by Christina Beavis. Hi, Christina.
Hey, how is everyone doing today?
Good to see you. So, for
Yeah.
those of you that don't yet know Christina, she works as a business mentor and a career coach. So, before we get into all of that, Christina, I just really love to know about your background. So, tell us about the kind of childhood you had.
So I was an only child until I was 16. So I consider myself an only child and my brother also an only child because we grew up separately. So that I think dictates a lot of who I am. I grew up in small town in Alberta, Southern Alberta in Canada, until I was about 8 or 9. So the type of childhood I had, I feel like there was a lot of being an only child. There was a lot of pressure to be perfect. And that actually kind of goes to my story later on in life, but this pressure to do everything right, be perfect, do well in school, all of those things were kind of part of my childhood. And it's hard to know looking back, like, was it just who I am? Like, you just never know. Is it something that's just innate who I am, or is it how I was raised, or is it the pressures that I felt? It's hard to know how you're created, but I would say I had a happy childhood. We grew up very poor, secondhand clothes. I never necessarily struggled with food on the table, but we certainly did not have lavish vacations or anything like that growing up.
So, what do you remember that your family did teach you? What kind of things did they teach you to believe that you now even, maybe use or maybe don't use because it's not quite so effective?
Interesting. That's an interesting question I haven't really thought about. I would say that I was taught to always try my best. That you just put your best effort forward. I was taught good values, like I was taught good morals growing up, in terms of, doing the right thing and not, it's interesting. I just thought of this story this is all just blows my mind. When I was 8 years old, I was babysitting newborns. Like, that's the kind of kid I am. When you think about that now, it's preposterous, right? But I was 8 and I went across the road and babysat a newborn. And that's just the kind of kid I was. I was responsible and I just always did the right thing and just could handle things. I feel like for some of my life, I was more the adult than perhaps my parents were, frankly.
Wow. So, where do you think then that striving for perfection came from? If you were taught to do your best and do the right thing, did it extend to actually, and if you can, be perfect?
Yeah, I think so. I would say so. And whether that was intentional or not, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm a parent of 3, and as a parent, you do try your best to, give your kid the best that you possibly can and make it better than your childhood. But of course, we're never perfect as parents, right? And my mom actually came from a very abusive upbringing. And I'm lucky she was never abusive to me. She was a wonderful mother, but definitely she put all of her expectations on me to kind of, I don't know if it was to turn the family around or what it was, but I do appreciate everything she did for me. But it was, no parent is perfect. Now that my kids are older, I'm like, how did I mess you up? I thought I was doing such a good job,
Well, I'm certainly not a perfect parent, and I also had one child, so I can kind of relate to what you're saying. So, in
Yes.
terms of your career, did you have any idea when you were younger, because you were kind of old beyond your years by the sound of it, did you have any idea what you were going to do?
I had no idea. I think when I went to school, I thought I would go into psychology. And looking at that now, I wonder whether that was just kind of as a girl, there are certain limitations that society puts on you. So I don't know if that psychology was just the thing that came up because that's what you would do. You wouldn't necessarily think to be a doctor as a girl, but I didn't know. And I went to university kind of just trying to find myself. Like, part of this whole like childhood being brought up needing to be perfect by the time I was 18, I was just kind of done with that. And my whole goal in life was to just get out of my parents' house, right? So I could have a bit of freedom, because I was never afforded any freedom the way I was raised. So my whole journey to university was more get me the heck out of here versus what am I going to do with my life, right? Like I didn't even care. I just wanted the freedom of being able to be my own person and live my life.
Yeah. So what happened after university? Tell us your story up until now,
Yes.
Christina.
Okay. So after university, it's interesting. So I went to university, and after my third year, I believe, so in Canada, you can get government funding to help you pay for your university. And I got it the first year, but I didn't get it the second year. And I was a bit rebellious against my parents and didn't necessarily, they couldn't really afford to help me pay for it anyway. But long story short, I ended up having to work. So I was working 2 jobs, way more than 40 hours a week, trying to go to school full time. And after a few years of that, ended up having a bit of a breakdown. I mean, I should just say it, no one should be ashamed of mental illness, but definitely like went through a depressive episode when I was maybe 21 and ended up having to drop out of university. And I tried going back a few times after a year or two of like just working on myself. And I never even graduated until 2008. So in 2008, which at that point was maybe 10 years after I was supposed to graduate, I finally went back and got my final course and a half that I needed to get my degree. But up until that point, I had been working as a real estate consultant. I had been working with a real estate agent and helped her build a fairly large team in business. And then in 2008, that's when I had my third child. And up until that point, with my first 2, I had never really taken a maternity leave. So in Canada, you're afforded 12-month maternity leave, but I had never done that because, again, this whole like striving perfectionist attitude, I don't know if I didn't feel like I could, even though looking back, I could have. But in 2008, I was like, I'm going to have my final child. I'm going to take a proper maternity leave. So I left my consulting business. I left the real estate business. I think in my mind, I thought I would go back to consulting, but I don't know if you can remember, but 2008 was a very bad year for the economy. So after I had had my son and took my time off, first of all, that was a mistake. Like, I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I don't have it in me. And I admire the women who can do that, but it just is not a part of my DNA for whatever reason. I am not wired that way. So when I wanted to go back to work, the economy was in a shambles. And my husband also did not have a steady job at that time because he was in real estate and there was nothing happening. So we both kind of sucked up our egos and just went and found any job we could. So I ended up becoming an executive assistant for this serial entrepreneur. And from there, 10 years later, I ended up running all of the companies, but it was definitely a journey up until now. I think so after I was with that company for about 7 or 8 years, maybe it was only 5 years, we moved to the Turks and Caicos Islands from Canada. So that was a huge life shift. We've been here about 8 years now.
Wow, amazing. So you mentioned some challenges that you had on your journey. How did you actually get through it?
I think just pure willpower and stamina and hard work. Sometimes you don't know, looking back, it's like a blur, but I feel like any challenge that I have gone through, it's just knowing that you're doing the right thing. Like even going back to being an executive assistant, like that was a massive step down from what I had been doing before, but that's what had to be done to pay the mortgage, right? And I wasn't going to just sit there and lose my house just because I felt I was way overqualified to be someone's assistant, which I was, but it doesn't matter, right? So I think being able to put your ego aside and just do what needs to be done in order to get through is what has really helped me.
Yeah.
And, we all have that internal intuition where if something is right or not, and it's just not being afraid to follow that. And that's actually over the last couple of years really driven my journey is that I left my corporate job where I was running a whole bunch of companies and making a lot of money, because I knew that just was not the right thing for me to do. And it's just taking those leaps of faith when you have those nudges.
Yeah, I think sometimes a lot of people don't stop and take the time to really listen to the nudge. So you're right,
Yes.
we all have it, don't we? But sometimes people just kind of overlook it and just keep on anyway on that hamster wheel,
Well, it can be scary. And I mean, if I'm being honest, I should have left that job years before, but I was afraid. I told myself all these stories about how, I'm the breadwinner for my family and I need this job in order to support my family. And like all of these stories, which true or not, were actually holding me back in the end.
Yeah. Thank God you listened to that nudge, Christina.
Yes, I am very grateful. It's been
Absolutely
very liberating.
So you've got this amazing testimonial on LinkedIn, and I really want to read it because I think it says so much about who you are and what you do. Okay. It says, Christina is an absolute pleasure to work with. She is kind, smart, and willing to be bold whenever it's needed. I've never had more fun at work than when I'm speaking with Christina to develop her thought leadership ideas, to break down what it takes to ensure brands and their customers have a productive relationship. If you want to have fun and cut through all the bull to own your shit and be a great brand, just listen to Christina. She's got it all figured out and then some. I love that. Now, if someone is watching Christina and actually they're really struggling with their brand right now and they're not getting the results they want, have you got some tips that you can share?
Well, first of all, in that context, I just want to say I am not a marketer. So this is not marketing advice or anything like that, but I believe truly at my core that you need to listen to your customers. And brands that are not willing to really have interactive dialogue and actually hear what their customers are saying are in trouble. I think it's critical. That's like so many brands spend millions of dollars on acquisition, like trying to get new customers, but they're not spending any money on retention and they're not concerned about retaining the clients that you've already spent money to get. And that to me is critical. And that's where that quote probably came from. But hearing someone say all that, kind of like, oh, it makes me uncomfortable. And that's where that whole imposter syndrome comes in, where it's like, ooh, am I really that good? Like, do I really have these skills? Am I really qualified to speak, as a professional in this area?
Oh, I love that, because so many people will be able to relate to what you're saying. In a way, sometimes it doesn't matter how good we get at something, how much of an expert in inverted commas we become, there's still that feeling sometimes that, who are we kidding? What do you do when you're not working?
So since I've moved to the Caribbean, I find I have a lot more free time, and it's pretty ironic because I am not athletic in any way, but I play a lot of sport now. So I play tennis, I play ball hockey, which is funny because I lived in Canada, which is very hockey oriented, and I never played a lick until I moved to the Caribbean, so figured that one out. But I just spend time with friends and family, go for walks on the beach. It's just a very relaxed atmosphere here, which I like. I just spent 3 months in Canada, and you're just always so busy. I don't even know what you're busy with in like that Western society, if you will. But here, there's a lot more time. You're not commuting to work. You don't have to drive. It takes 5 minutes to go anywhere here. So it's a different lifestyle, which I enjoy.
Bliss. Sounds like absolute bliss, Christine.
Some of it.
Yeah, some of it. Okay.
Yeah,
so
not perfect.
Of all the things you have ever done in your life, of which clearly there are many, what are you most proud of?
Oh, I would say my family. And I know that's kind of a cop out, but it's true. Like I've been married 20 something years. I don't even know exactly, 22 years. And my husband is still my best friend, and we still do everything together. And I think being able to raise kids that's really been the best accomplishment that I've had.
Wow, wonderful. One final question.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When you're no longer on this planet, how would you like to be remembered?
That's a hard one. And it's interesting. It's a bit near and dear to my heart. And that was actually what made me leave my last role. Was my father actually passed away in 2020, very, very suddenly. He was only 66. And that really made me think about this exact question: is what are you even here for, right? And it certainly wasn't to push the paper and do, I don't know, just make people money that aren't actually doing any good in the world. So the thing that I've started is an education charity for the kids here in the Turks and Caicos, because I feel like without a proper education from a young age, you're really not able to make a difference in your life or your life of your family, right? Education does need to start at a young age. So I would like to be known for that, for being able to encourage kids to understand their worth and know that they can be more than what they see around them, right? Especially girls. Like, I think girls are often pigeonholed. Like I had said before, like I pigeonholed myself into thinking, well, I guess I'll just be a psychologist because that seems very reasonable, right? But it's being able to influence and motivate women and girls to know that they are worth more and that they can do more with their life.
Beautiful. What a legacy to leave. And can I ask the name of the charity?
So the name, well, the company that is providing the funding is Project Edify. So we're donating 10% of all of our revenue to the education charity.
Wonderful. Well, what can I say? It's been fab talking to you.
Yes.
And I love,
same.
you know, in your testimonial, you know, there was a lot about fun. And I think that's so, so important in life and in business. So Christina Beavis, thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. This has been wonderful. I appreciate it.